The apostle of Christ, Saint Thomas, the unbelieving disciple of the Lord. And today is his feast. It's typically the Sunday after Easter Sunday. Theologian Professor Lambruscanus writes, on the first Sunday after the resurrection of our Lord, our church commemorates the holy and glorious apostle Thomas, and the relevant passage of his touching Christ is read in the churches. This choice is not accidental. It comes to confirm, along with so many other testimonies, that the Lord was indeed resurrected from the dead. Thomas, by divine grant, asked to have a tangible experience of the resurrection of Christ, to place his hands on the prints of the nails, and to believe in the supreme event of the resurrection. His name in the Aramaic language, Theoma, means twin, and in the Holy Gospel he is indeed given the epithet twin, John 11:16. The hagiographic information about Thomas is relatively scarce, and for this reason arbitrary interpretations have been raised from time to time about his person. They have tried to identify whose twin brother or sister he was. Some identify him with the god brother Judas, mentioned by Matthew 13:55. In fact, the Antichrist writers claim that he was the twin brother of the Lord, despite the contrary testimonies of the Gospels wanting to attack the supernatural incarnation of God, the Word. In an ancient tradition, which our church accepts, is that Thomas was the twin brother of a certain Lydia or Lysias. Some other tradition states that he was the twin brother of a certain Eleazar. Thomas came from Antioch, unlike the majority of the disciples who came from the area of Galilee. So he came from Antioch, and unlike the majority of the disciples who were Galileans, John 21:2, he was called by the Lord to follow him, and he obeyed, Matthew 10:33 and Mark 3:18, Luke 6:15. In general, he was one of the most devoted disciples, distinguished by his courage. When the other disciples tried to prevent Christ from going to Bethany to resurrect Lazarus, for fear of being mistreated by the fanatics, Thomas defied the danger, saying to them, "Let us also go, that we may die with him," John 11:16. And this is the first time that a disciple of Christ was heard to ask to die with the Lord. At the same time, he was also relatively rational. At the Last Supper, he did not hesitate to ask the Lord, "Lord, we do not know where you are going, and how can we know the way?" John 14:5. He was also a skeptic and a disbeliever. In order to believe in the resurrection of the Lord, he asked for tangible confirmation, to feel that with his own hands the wounds of his teacher. After feeling, he confessed with enthusiasm and spontaneity, "My Lord and my God," John 20:28. Ancient tradition states that he preached the gospel in Persia and the vast country of India. To this day, he is considered the illuminator of these countries. The end of his life was a martyrdom. Fanatic pagans killed him by spearing him, and his memory celebrated October 6th. 3 apocryphal texts from 2nd century AD have been preserved in the name of Thomas. These are undoubtedly forged texts by ancient heretical Gnostics who wanted to give authority to their heretical doctrines, attributing them to Apostle Thomas. These texts contain serious errors and heresies, and therefore should not be trusted by the faithful, because the Christian militants use them to damage the credibility of Christian teaching, and especially the divine person of our Redeemer Christ. Many call the Apostle Thomas an unbeliever. This characterization of him is not correct. Thomas was not an unbeliever, but a skeptic. He sought evidence in order to be convinced and to believe, as he did. The Lord did not deny him this desire, which means that our faith in the teaching of our church is not and should not be a passive and completely uncritical state, but a product of free choice. The Apostle Philip, when he spoke to his friend Nathanael about Christ, said to him that famous, "Come and see," John 1:47. "Come, my friend, and see with your own eyes what I tell you about him." Therefore, it's not wrong to investigate in good faith. It's wrong to maintain an attitude of bad faith, which will ultimately keep us far from the truth. The Apostle Thomas was in good faith, and therefore, after satisfying his senses, he boldly confessed, "My Lord and my God." John 20:28. How many great men and women in history did not become believers through investigation? Myriads of true scientists have discovered their faith through scientific research because in their miraculous findings they saw the uncreated energies of God to be present, creative, and cohesive forces of the world. On the contrary, there are other scientists who are not touched by the fact of God's omnipresence because they rush from the beginning guided by blind faith. They will never find the truth and will never meet God. The Dark Middle Ages circulated in the heretical West a slogan which has no basis in the Holy Scriptures and the tradition of our church. It is "Believe and do not search," which became the battle cry of the Christian militants in recent centuries against the church, and it supposedly refuses scientific research and demands blind faith and obedience. But this was a tactic of the heretical papacy which imposed its believers uncritical faith and devotion in order to exercise its secular power. On the contrary, the Holy Scriptures and the fathers of the Christian Orthodox Church urge us, "Search the Scriptures," John 5:39, and "do not be deceived," Psalms 2:12. Our criterion should be the fact of freedom, which is a condition for determining the person. The free man is the genuine image of God, conformed to the image of God through Christ, Philippians 3:23. And this is what the Apostle Thomas did. Okay, search the Scriptures, and it's good to ask in order to have evidence. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.